The trip begins. First Australian sunrise, 37,000 feet above Connemara. Hobart, population 227,000, is the capital of Tasmania. It's the second oldest city in Australia and began as a penal colony. 1,271 meter high Mount Wellington overlooks Hobart. Oldest brewery in Australia. Fishing fleet in Hobart Harbour. The Tasman Bridge over the Derwent River. 2 piers and 3 spans were taken out by a wayward boat. 4 cars were lost in the river. It took 2 years to repair the bridge. Salamanca Place consists of restored sandstone warehouses that date back to the whaling days of the 1830s. It is now a trendy shopping and entertainment district. Sculptures depicting the history of Tasmania have been installed along Highway 1. Village of Oatland, Tasmania. Lake Dulverton Conservation Area in an old sandstone quarry. Campbelltown Sandstone Bridge was built by convicts in 1838. Convicts who built the bridge are memorialized in bricks laid in the sidewalk of Campbelltown. Mount Roland, a 4,000-foot high Dolomite mountain. Hydroelectric dam near Cradle Mountain. Tasmania is self-sufficient with its electricity. Statue of wedge-tailed eagles at the entrance to the Cradle Mountain Hotel. Jake Makota sculptures at the Cradle Mountain Art Gallery. Pencil Falls at Cradle Mountain. Tasmanian Devil. Wombat. Spotted Quoll. Eastern Quoll. Wedge-tailed eagle. Sign warning of tiger snakes in the button grass. Cradle Mountain Park. Black currawong, a bird that is found only in Tasmania. Marion's Lookout in Cradle Mountain Park. Cradle Mountain and Dove Lake. Gustav Weindorfer lived at Waldheim. He was a founder of Cradle Mountain National Park. Sheffield, Tasmania's mural town. Railton, Tasmania's topiary town. Cows at Ashgrove Farm painted by school children. Cascade Gorge Park on the South Esh River at Launceston, Tasmania. Beauty Point Platypus House at Launceston. Echinids at the Platypus House. A Tasmanian vineyard is protecting its ripe grapes from predatory birds. Elaborate wrought iron in a Launceston, Tasmania home. Melbourne, population 4.5 million, is a dynamic cosmopolitan city proud of its place as Australia's sporting and cultural capital. More than 230 laneways penetrate into the heart of the city and contain restaurants, bars, and amazing street art. An historic shot tower has been preserved within a mall in central Melbourne. The La Trobe Reading Room at the State Library. A painting about Aboriginal reconciliation in the State Library. St. Patrick's Cathedral was designed by William Wardell. Building began in 1858 and continued until the spires were added in 1939. It is built out of bluestone. The Flinders Street railway station was built in 1854. Federation Square is the congregation place in central Melbourne. The square is paved with 460,000 hand-laid cobblestones from Kimberley in Western Australia, and its buildings are clad in a fractal pattern material that is supposed to resemble reptilian skin. Our tour group with then our Aboriginal guide at the Melbourne Botanical Gardens and the Aboriginal flag. We visited the Moonlit Sanctuary on Mornington Peninsula and saw many native marsupials and birds. Dingo. We visited Sheila's farm on the Mornington Peninsula for a tour of the farm and lunch. Mornington Pier. Bath boxes on the beach at Mornington. One bath box at auction can be expected to sell for more than $100,000. Sue testing the waters of Bass Strait in the Tasman Sea. School children in Melbourne waiting for their bus. The Yarra River runs through Melbourne. Stratton Heights on the Yarra River. Art Deco flats were designed in the 1930s for Harry Newport, who owned a successful clothes and fabric import business. The Eureka Tower apartment building has gold cap to the Victoria Gold Rush and a red stripe to commemorate the bloodshed during the Eureka Stockade Uprising. The observation deck on the 88th floor is the highest in the Southern Hemisphere. The sculptures on the Sandridge Bridge are called the Travellers and honor immigrants to Australia. Webb Bridge. Seafarers Bridge. The Melbourne Exhibition Centre is commonly known as Jeff's Shed after Jeff Kennett, who was Premier of Victoria when the centre was opened. The Exhibition Centre has 3,000 square meters of pillarless exhibition space, and 1,000 cars can be parked in its underground parking lot. There are multi-million-dollar condominiums along the water. The Marina Towers are also known as the Leaning Towers of Melbourne. The two joined towers separate at the 21st floor at a 5-degree angle. The two black towers are built to resemble diving whales. The Yarra River is tidal for about 14 kilometers, and high tide left little clearance between the cruise boat and the bridge. There was construction everywhere in Melbourne. Alice Springs, population 24,000, is in the geographic center of Australia, 1,500 kilometers from Darwin and Adelaide. It is around the usually dry Todd River and on the north side of the Macdonnell mountain range. Peacock at the Doubletree Hotel in Alice Springs. The peacocks apparently keep the snakes under control. The Overland Telegraph Station in Alice Springs. The telegraph was crucial to opening up Central Australia. Chris Barnes, also known as Brolga, which is a tall Australian bird, has a kangaroo sanctuary at Alice Springs. He is carrying a rescued red kangaroo joey, Penny, in the picture. Rescued joeys in a laundry basket. Sue taking a turn carrying Penny. Andrew is the alpha red male kangaroo at the kangaroo sanctuary. Sunset at the sanctuary. The Reverend John Flynn's grave and memorial at Alice Springs. Reverend Flynn was the founder of the Royal Flying Doctor Service. The boulder was donated by the Arrernte Indigenous people and it is called the Devil's Marble. Simpson's Gap and the dry Ross River bed near Alice Springs. It is a sacred place for Indigenous people. Waterhole at Simpson's Gap. The water in a dry land attracts birds. These are zebra finches. Nets up for a group picture with Lindsay Watson, our guide. Sue holding Lindsay Watson's painting. We visited the Alice Springs School of the Air. John Flynn set up his mantle of safety for remote communities and cattle stations in Central Australia. A South Australian school inspector had the idea to use Flynn's radios to teach children in the remote areas. This was begun in 1951, and the program has been very successful. Classes are now carried out via broadband and satellite internet technology. The 50th birthday mural was produced in 2001. Sue, Suzanne, and Jerry learning to play a didgeridoo at a workshop. Stylized caterpillars and moths at Parchima, the Aboriginal Festival of Light in Alice Springs. Parchima Lights at Desert Park. Gail's friend Frank Yama was a headliner at the festival show. Macdonnell Mountains at the Desert Park. An example of semi-arid desert with spinifex grass, which contains silicates and is very sharp at Desert Park. The Desert Park has an interesting collection of Australian birds and reptiles and has one of the largest nocturnal houses in the world where the nocturnal creatures can be seen under infrared light. Desert Park has a marvelous exhibition of free-flying avian predators. We wore head nets in Central Australia to protect against the numerous flies. They didn't bite, but they wanted to get into our nose and eyes for the moisture. Catachuta consists of 36 domes of composite rocks rising from the desert. The tallest is Mount Olga, and it is 200 meters higher than Uluru. The site is sacred for Aboriginal males. Ayers Rock, or Uluru, is a 348-meter high sandstone monolith. It is 9.4 kilometers in circumference. It arises from the desert floor and is sacred to the Pitjantjatjara and Angu indigenous people of the region. We visited Uluru at sunset and at sunrise when it glows red. Depressions in the rock are said to represent the hearts of doomed lovers who died at Uluru. Sacred caves contain Aboriginal rock art. Cairns, population 150,000, is on the east coast of Cape York in far north Queensland. It is the gateway to the Great Barrier Reef and to wet tropical rainforest. We visited the Great Barrier Reef on the Ocean Spirit catamaran. We moored about 40 kilometers offshore at a seabird sanctuary, Michaelmas Key. The crew threw bait into the water to give us an idea of the fish on the reef. We were given lycra suits with hoods to protect us from jellyfish stings. We got a chance to see the reef from a semi-submersible boat and also by snorkeling. "26 species of seabirds inhabit Michaelmas Key, and there are estimated to be approximately 20,000 birds on the island and in the air." Sugarcane fields outside of Cairns. Mossman Gorge is in Daintree National Park, about 80 kilometers north of Cairns. It is the traditional homeland of the Kuku-Yalanji indigenous people. Mossman Gorge contains the oldest continually surviving rainforest in the world. Roy Gibson, a legendary Kuku-Yalanji rainforest guide, leads a smoking ceremony welcoming us to Mossman Gorge, and then leads us through the rainforest. Lizard is a favorite food of the indigenous forest people. Mossman River. Roy Gibson demonstrates natural pigments used by the indigenous people for decoration. Wild bush turkey. Butterflies congregating along the Mossman River. Cape York coastline. Daintree Tea House restaurant, where one of the proprietors, Richard, educated us about the 12 different types of tropical fruit in our lunch. David Hudson, a friend of Gail's and one of the premier didgeridoo players in the world, put on an impromptu show for the group with his wife. An iconic view of the Sydney Opera House and Harbour Bridge, taken from the Botanical Gardens. The main symphony hall in the Opera House. People walking across the top of the Harbour Bridge. Macquarie's chair in the Sydney Botanical Gardens. Governor Macquarie's wife sat here and watched the ships come into the harbour, and she dreamt of going home to England. Sydney Naval Yards. Views of the Sydney waterfront with some of the more expensive real estate in the world. The Rocks, a favorite spot to propose marriage and a favorite spot to jump and commit suicide. White cockatoos on the rock cliffs. War Memorial in Sydney. 3 out of every 7 Australians to serve in the Second World War died. The Australian white ibis is seen in all of the Sydney parks. There were also numerous rainbow lorikeets in the parks. We saw the largest opal ever mined in the world at the Altman and Cherney store in Sydney. It is 7 pounds. 20 years before our trip, Amy worked at the Edinburgh Castle. It is still the local for the firemen. We visited for a pint and some lunch.